In today's paper, we make the economic case for independence. Fundamentally, we argue in this paper that a stronger, fairer, more sustainable economy is more possible for Scotland with independence than it ever will be with continued Westminster control. More sustainable economy. By combining Scotland's many economic strengths and abundant resources, particularly our vast renewable energy potential, with the policy levers that come with independence, an economic model built on social partnership and good, stable governance, we can build a well-being economy that works for all. We also address in this paper key questions on currency, fiscal sustainability and trade, and I'll say more on these topics shortly. Sustainability, more sustainable economy. There is no route for Scotland as part of the UK back to the EU or to the single market or customs union. Questions like, why now in these tough times? Is a stronger, fairer economy really possible with independence? What currency will we use? How will we deal with any debt and deficit we inherit? How can we protect trade across the UK if we are back in the EU? To build a more stable, sustainable economy with fairness and human well-being at heart, independence is essential. Sustainable economy with fairness and human well-being at heart. More sustainable economy. Sustainable economy with fairness and human well-being at heart. Independence is essential. And that's the fundamental point we make in this paper. Independence is not an abstract argument separate from people's daily lives. It has at its heart the ambition, and crucially it equips us with the essential tools to build a fairer, wealthier, greener, happier country. High-wage, productive economies that are sustainable and more inclusive. With employment law powers, we could do more to tackle the gender pay gap and age discrimination. With independence, we can rejoin the EU and be back inside the world's biggest trading bloc. As an EU member state in our own right, we would for the first time be in a position not just to benefit from EU trade deals, but help shape them. We would have an immigration policy tailored to our needs. And we would have the stability of knowing that the governments making the decisions that shape our economy have actually been elected by us. A more stable, sustainable economy.
And Scotland shares with the EU a vision for Europe that embodies democratic values, promoting the well-being of all in society, rises fully to the challenge of the global climate emergency and supports a sustainable economic recovery from the global pandemic.
Especially about sovereignty, possibly carry less weight in Scotland. After all, Scotland has been pooling sovereignty in one form or another for many years. We've always been a nation that has looked outwards to the rest of the UK, to Europe and to the wider world. And it's worth noting that this would have remained the case even if Scotland had voted last year to become an independent country. There's absolutely nothing contradictory about independent countries recognising their interdependence and choosing to pool some sovereignty for mutual advantage. We can rejoin the EU and be back inside the world's biggest trading bloc. As an EU member state in our own right, we would for the first time be in a position not just to benefit from EU trade deals, but help shape them. We would have an immigration policy tailored to our needs. And we would have the stability of knowing that the governments making the decisions that shape our economy have actually been elected by us. The approach we would take to securing fiscal sustainability is on a sustainable path. To put and keep public finances on a sustainable path, we would intend these to align with the broad principles of the European Growth and Stability Pact, which is currently being reformed. We intend to have fiscal rules that keep day-to-day spending within sustainable limits, a sustainable path, and debt on a sustainable path, but still permit governments to properly support public services and borrow to invest. It is ultimately the creation of a sustainable, inclusive economy that delivers fiscal sustainability. We invest remaining oil revenues and use our new borrowing powers responsibly and for a purpose. We can invest up to £20 billion in the first decade of independence. This investment will help accelerate the transition to net zero and transform communities. And crucially, it will help kickstart the inclusive growth that will help get our newly independent nation on a fiscally sustainable path while building the fair society we all want. Further paper later in this series, specifically on European Union issues. Independence opens the door to Scotland rejoining the EU and the single market. That will allow us to grow and diversify our trade in the way Ireland did after joining the EU. An independent Scotland, though, back in the EU, will also regain free movement across 27 other countries. What Brexit does mean, though, when Scotland returns to the EU, is that border arrangements will be required to ensure continued trade in goods and services across the UK. None of this is insurmountable, but it does require proper planning. Most of Scotland's trade with the rest of the UK is in services, and we set out the arrangements that will need to be in place to ensure that continues. As far as manufactured goods are concerned, the things that actually physically cross borders, we actually export more to the rest of the world than to the rest of the UK. Nevertheless, we set out here the mechanisms by which necessary checks can be carried out in a way that allows smooth trade to continue. As we did in 2014, we will endeavour, and I think it's really important that we set out as much information as we possibly can, and that's what this series of papers is seeking to do. And if you take Europe, for example, there will be a paper, as I said, I think a moment ago, dedicated to issues around European membership. Yes, there will be a process of negotiation that is required there, but nobody with any credibility seriously suggests that Scotland would not be welcome back into the European Union. And while there would be a process of negotiation, most people who know what they're talking about on this issue are very clear that that would not be a particularly lengthy process. But these are issues that we will continue to update and inform people on.